stand in the way. Nothing will stand in the way. Do you think tower buildings do? It's not do. And we find ourselves Paul here in 16, and then came he to Derbe at Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman, which was a Jewess, and believed, but his father was Greek. Now this definition of Jewess in the sense of it was Judean, that is, belonging to Judea, of Judah, but the other guy was Greek, meaning he probably was from Athens. He was an inhabitant of Hellas, by extension a Greek-speaking person, especially a non-Jew. So he wasn't from there, okay? So he wasn't from there, that's all it is. Which was reported by the brethren that were at Lystra. Who would Paul have to go forth with him, and took and circumcised him, because all the Jews which were in the quarters, for they knew all that his father was a Greek, circumcised in the base, to cut around. And they went through the cities and delivered them the decrees for to keep that were ordained of the apostles and elders which were at Jerusalem. There is Jerusalem. You ever get the idea, and I do, as we are, being introduced, since 1947, which kind of puts me at odds, as I've read in 1947, of course, that I've made mention of it and I had that book, which I don't have. Where the British are, the Jews are at war with the British for wanting to, keep the Ottoman, which puts the whole thing at odds, Perhaps there was, I don't know. In that book, which I don't have again, can't even remember the name of it. It was this little paperback. It wasn't little, but it was a paperback. Can't even remember the title of it. Now, what they had gone, which would make you kind of think that perhaps that actually the British had lost more troops trying to keep and prevent the holy city from. I mean, it's a good argument today, isn't it? It does give you a duplicitous advantage. Let's just at least say that. Not that perhaps was the case. All of it may more be established later as failings were before the peace initiative by Mr. Mitchell, and he achieved between the stone throwers. There was a lot of stone throwing then. Did you know they were throwing quite big stones up there in the lands? And they were consistent in their stone throwing, and then the stones were big, and so we had to send someone over there to make the stones go at least a little bit smaller than wouldn't we then say, and so that we achieved the communicative advantage, with peace being an initiative. It's a big initiative. It's a big new initiative. It's a big new initiative. Which has been achieved, and so that it does parlay the possibility of, if one stone throwing group can just put out them stones for a little bit, then maybe some of the other groups can also put out the stones. Wouldn't you then say? How much time do we have left here on this one? They had gone to Parthia anyway, and so were the churches established in the faith, and increased in number daily. Let's See what faith is. Persuasion, that is, moral conviction. Truth, or truthfulness of God. This is the definition of faith here in that. Especially reliance upon Christ for salvation, abstractly constancy. In such profession, by extension, a system of religious gospel, there's that word, truth, assurance, belief, faith, fidelity. Of course, Paul defines faith as the way it is that I led. That Betty led up in jeopardy. On jeopardy, it did succumb to the power of the holy circumcision. Is that a word, circumcision? By the way, I tell you, I would be remiss today if I didn't. I dig out some of this stuff, and what you have to do is you have to really get a good sound system. And I've made improvements. I've made better connections. But loose wires aren't good. But this guy here did not get, at least to me, this guy here didn't quite get the resurrection. Who was that one from Boston? On the NPR channel. I thought of her name yesterday, not today. Lisa from Boston. Anyway, I didn't get this. I didn't fully come to appreciate this guy until I've listened more closely. And of course, this would have been, and I got to thinking again about this thing. That's why I always go back and revisit, because it's there are new, I wouldn't say revelations, there are new discoveries. And I guess that discovery is a revelation, which reminds me I got to revel out to the stand-up position. We've gone through if anybody had followed me every step of the way, we had gone through, you would have seen, we went through a lot of decries. A lot of decries. I got to thinking about things as I other people's perspective a little bit, which was it perhaps accurate? Was it perhaps accurate? Anyway, this guy here, and I was thinking, now we have two cities where we could put two expansion football teams in there. Put those in those newly unused stadiums, huh? There you go. You have two. If you want to parlay the independent contractors, pool your money together and form the teams and get players in there. And, you know what I mean? You can be the owners, the two teams. You can take off. Take off, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm just throwing out suggestions here. Otherwise, it reminds me that we was going to get back to this thing. Now they had gone through, preached the word in Asia. And after they were come to Mysia, they essayed to go into Bithynia. But the Spirit suffered them not to go. Now, wouldn't you say, wouldn't the Spirit suffer? Now, there you're going to find the word for the definition. It's permit, okay? It did permit. The Spirit, the current of air, the breeze, the little bit of rational soul, Something told him, don't go. That was probably another little bit of rational soul, little rational soul. And my pastor, they came down in the bed of Macedonia. They prayed with him, saying, come over to Macedonia and help us. And after he had seen the vision, immediately we endeavored to go into Macedonia, assuredly gathering that the Lord had called us to preach the gospel unto them. That's salvation through Jesus Christ. Perhaps that's part of it, huh? Salvation through Jesus Christ. And after loosing from Troas, they kept their straight course into Samothracia, to next to the Metropolis, where they met Superman and Clark Kent and Lois Lane, who was played by Terry Hatcher, who was still in the hay of her. And from thence to Philippi, which is the chief city in the part of Macedonia, a colony. And we're stuck in the colonies. We're in the city abiding certain days. And on the Sabbath, we went out to the city by a riverside where prayer was wont to be made, to do by law as a custom. And we sat down and spoke unto the women which resorted thither. And a certain woman named Lydia, a seller of purple, of the city of... What do you think a seller of purple is? A female trader at purple cloth. Seller of purple. That makes perfectly purple sense. And of course, the heart of the Lord was open, and she attended. It's that she attended at the things which were spoken of Paul. Let's see who Paul is here. Hey, not you, John. Paul, of Latin origin, Paul, a little but remotely derivative, meaning the same. Paulus, P-A-U-L-U-S, the name of a Roman and an apostle. Well, Paul was born in Tarsus, of course, and of course he traveled around, and he, you attained in those days, sort of the title of like Paul said, he would go and he would esteem others better than himself. What are we up to here anyway? Goodness, the time goes. Anyway, and he would take on the very essence of what would you think the most important is. We just went through this litany of all these cities, so anyone from each of these attending cities would have been, a Philippian, a Macedonian, so he would take on all these assumed positions of being resident of, and not being a foreigner, too, resident and foreigner. In the case of resident prayer, a certain damsel possessed with the spirit of divination, bet us which brought her master such gainsaying, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. Soothsaying, that means a prophet of rave, inspiration, utterance of foretelling by soothsaying. We've heard that word before, soothsaying. I don't know who was the first one to say it. It wasn't me. I'm still trying to get that spigot fixed. Next year, honey. Just give me one more year. This day see many days, but Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the Spirit, I command thee in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. And he came out the same hour. And when her master saw the hope of their gains were gone, they caught Paul and Silas and drew them into the marketplace and to the rulers and brought it to the magistrates, saying, these men being Jews, do exceedingly, being Jews, Jewish Romans. I think that's where all the Romans are like the Jews. Kind of a thing comes into play. And teach customs which are not lawful, Jesus Christ coming out, commanding in the name of Jesus Christ to come out of her. Teach customs which are lawful to receive, neither to observe, being Romans. And the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes and commanded to beat them. And when they laid many stripes upon them and cast them into prison, charging to the jailer to keep them safely. Keep them safely. That's so they could have them to devour with their magistrates, leaving the magistrates to devour. Oh, you wonder where they got the ideas from all this stuff. Now you know why. Where?